Hello, this is Mary Ellen Hurtado with Selig Group, and I would like to welcome everyone to today's webinar, Maximizing E-Commerce Profitability. We hope you find our webinar and the information we provide informative, educational, and mostly we hope to spark conversations on the e-commerce trends, ways to reduce e-commerce costs and risks. I will introduce our presenters. Today we have Michael Linder, Director of Business Development with Selig Group. Michael's been with Selig for 9 years, promoting the value of vented technologies and the value they present to our global customers. Michael has been helping companies solve their most difficult packaging challenges for over 30 years in sales management, business development, and marketing. Joining Michael today is Kevin Lahev, Sales Manager at Kaufman Container. Kevin started with Kaufman in 2009 and served in various sales roles, most notably in outside sales for over 10 years. They will be presenting today's webinar, Maximizing E-Commerce Profitability, Strategies to Boost Product Sales and Margins.
Thank you, Mary Ellen, and thank all of you for joining us today. We truly do appreciate your time. My name is Michael Linder, and I'm with the Selig Group. And at Selig Group, we offer a wide range of high-quality sealing, venting, and flexible packaging applications. And why do customers choose the Selig Group? 3 reasons. Customer focus. We continually improve by listening to our customers, and today we are the most customer-specified liner brand in the world. 2, our focus on safety. At Selig, safety is paramount. And our policies, working conditions, operating practices all safeguard our employees, products, customers, and the general public. And supplier involvement. Selig suppliers are part of our quality team, and they're all dedicated to high quality products and services, of course, at competitive prices. Kevin?
Yeah, thanks, Michael. So again, my name is Kevin Lahev, and I'm the sales manager here at Kaufman Container. We're very excited to be co-hosting today's webinar with a great partner like Selig Group. I'm looking forward to a very informative and educational webinar focused on e-commerce packaging. Before we get into our presentation today, I wanted to briefly share some information about Kaufman Container. For those who are not familiar with Kaufman Container, we are a family-owned, one-stop packaging supplier with over 100 years of service. We specialize in stock and custom packaging, utilizing a supplier database of over 500 approved domestic and international partners. And we pride ourselves in our value-add approach, offering packaging development, in-house decoration, quality support, and warehouse and logistics services in Cleveland, Ohio. As I mentioned on our last slide, Kaufman Container offers full service decoration and graphic design out of Cleveland, Ohio. We offer screen printing, hot stamping, shrink sleeving, and pressure sensitive labeling. As we have seen consumer needs change, we have continually invested in new equipment on our floor to meet the needs of our customers. Most recently, we've added new servo print lines, which allow us to screen print up to 5 colors with precise registration, while also being able to label or hot stamp in line. These lines also allow us to print on unique and challenging shapes, such as squares, rectangles, and ovals. Although we primarily decorate on plastic containers, we do have the ability to decorate on glass and aluminum containers, as well as handle opportunities on tubes and closures. With that, please keep us in mind should a need arise, large or small. We have the right equipment in place to suit your needs. So as we dive into our discussion today on e-commerce, we thought it would be beneficial to start with some current trends. First and foremost, e-commerce sales continue to grow. It's currently estimated that 79% of all consumers shop online at least once per month. Amazon, the world's largest e-commerce company, has reported to have over 300 million active accounts. Those 300 million active accounts account for almost 38% of all e-commerce sales. And lastly, Amazon's reported that 28% of their sales are completed by users in under 3 minutes. So how are consumers reaching these e-commerce platforms? It's said that 91% of consumers purchase using their smartphones with access to products 24/7. As I'm sure many of you have observed, there has also been a rise in social media purchasing and advertising on sites like Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest. It's been said that 55% of individuals aged 18 to 24 have purchased via social media, and 40% of consumers have made a purchase online due to the recommendation of a social media influencer. So let's talk a bit about designing for e-commerce sales. It should be clear to us all that e-commerce sales are on the rise. So with that, it's more important now than ever to design your packaging around e-commerce transit and handling. So what can you do? First, you want to be sure that your product can pass the Amazon ISTA 6 requirements. This is a test that challenges the packaging and product's ability to withstand the general damage-producing motions, forces, conditions, and sequences of its environment. Second, you should strive to ensure your product's integrity. Again, with the additional touch points, the temperature and pressure changes during shipment, and additional handling, selecting packaging that can hold up to the unpredictable nature of shipping and handling is crucial. And lastly, select frustration-free packaging. Your goal should be to improve your customer's experience with your product. Another benefit to designing your packaging for e-commerce is to reduce or eliminate additional costs that can become necessary in some instances. If you've shopped around long enough, you have likely purchased a product with secondary packaging. This could be bags, bands, tape, or even shrink wrap around the entire product. Those methods all add cost to your product. You want to avoid packaging that fails in the field, which will result in chargebacks from Amazon and others. Lastly, when designing your packaging, see if lightweighting can be an option. Lightweighting packaging is a common method used by some to help push cost-saving initiatives and reduce plastic for sustainability purposes. But this method also helps with selling via e-commerce. Simply put, the lighter you can make the packaging, the better chance you have at achieving lower shipping rates to your customers. So let's take a look at a good example of a pump that was designed for e-commerce. Pumps can often be a challenge when shipping via e-commerce. Most pumps are designed to lock, either in an up or down position by rotating the head of the pump. If the head of the pump can remain in position, then the pump should be properly locked during transit. Unfortunately, that is not always the case. So to eliminate that issue, Aptar developed the Future Pump. The Future Pump is a monomaterial pump which is fully recyclable when paired with a polyethylene or PET bottle. If you are looking at the image, the pump locks and unlocks by rotating the green ring to allow the actuator to freely spin 360 degrees to minimize breakage during transit. And this pump is also suitable for various viscosities. It has 2 dosage outputs and 3 different neck sizes to help accommodate various product types. This is just one option of many in the market today that are designed with e-commerce sales in mind. If after this presentation you'd like to learn more about this product and many others in the market today, please feel free to reach out with questions. We'd be happy to help. But with that, I will pass it back to Michael to touch on more trends and cost-saving initiatives with e-commerce sales in mind.
We now have our first poll question, and I'll go ahead and launch that for you to respond to. It's a yes and no question, and it's, would you consider RFID radio frequency identification for your packaging? Please select one and we'll give you a couple of seconds. Waiting just for a couple more. And we'll go ahead and close the poll. And we have 75% that said yes, they would consider RFID, with 25% no. So Michael, I'll let you go ahead and address that.
Yeah, so that's a really interesting result, because I can tell you, after presenting RFID for a number of years now, that probably only 5 years ago, maybe even less than that, most of the brands that I was talking to wasn't even really thinking about RFID at all. Yeah, they've kind of thought about it as a concept or idea, but really had not even really considered it in terms of actual implementation. And I think with Walmart now, shall we say, suggesting to their suppliers that they provide RFID enabled packaging for all Walmart stores, I think you'll only see the use of RFID significantly increase from here. But RFID tags can improve supply chain and consumer engagement, right? Improve supply chain, track and trace, because now not only can you put RFID on tags and labels, on boxes and in boxes, even molded into plastic, but what you may not know is you can now put RFID tags inside a cap. Why inside a cap? What's the benefit there? By placing an RFID tag inside the cap, that is the least disruptive place to place an RFID tag in your manufacturing process. You don't require additional labeling, machines, labor. Doesn't require any of that. You simply have your caps lined as you normally do. RFID tag goes in it, and you place your cap on the bottle and induction seal it just like you do now. So it literally has no impact on your manufacturing process, but at the same time, in cap is ideal to achieve 100% supply chain visibility throughout your supply chain. And we've got a case study later in this presentation that I'll share with you. RFID also has been shown to improve consumer engagement, reorders, and sales by as much as 12%. And why is that? Because consumers can now engage with your product for the life of the bottle or the cap, depending on where you're placing that RFID tag. And if in the cap, the consumer can scan that cap as long as they have it with their iPhone today, and can be then taken to a portal for reordering your product. You can take them to a website where they can see other products for cross-selling and promotional purposes. Take them to your social media sites for tips or suggestions, or share their experiences in community with your product. And another tremendous benefit of RFID is countering counterfeiting. You know, an interesting study was done of major e-com portals, Amazon, Walmart, eBay. And it was found 43% of the products sold by sellers with a 90% rating or higher. So these are the best of the best sellers. 90% rating or higher. 43% of the products being sold were counterfeit. That is astounding to think that there might be as much as a 50% chance of your product is being counterfeited today. I'm working with a small brand right now, not that big of a company, and they are intimating that 80% of their sales are being lost due to counterfeiting. And they're a brand you wouldn't even know their name. So that is just a stunning number, and RFID goes a long way in mitigating or eliminating counterfeiting. Custom dispensing liners improve the consumer experience. Today, liners can be designed into almost an infinite range of patterns and designs for controlled dispensing of pills, so they can be sized to a particular pill and shape, and thus control dispensing so that only one pill comes out at a time. It can be designed for various liquids and glug-free pouring. It can be designed for powders and granules and spices. They are ideal for oily products that are using a plastic orifice reducer in combination with a CRC cap. Why is that? Well, some orifice reducers sit a little bit above the rim of the bottle. And thus, when oil gets on top of that orifice reducer and up into the two shells of a CRC cap, it can be very difficult for consumers to press down on that cap, get the caps to engage in order to remove the CRC. And thus, it becomes quite a hassle for consumers to even use the product. And custom dispensing liners can resolve that. It's ideal as a hermetic seal alternative to orifice reducers. Many orifice reducers don't allow for an induction seal, in which case, if you now have to package that product for e-com, you're going to have to shrink wrap it or put it in a bag. So custom dispensing liner can be a significant cost-saving alternative to e-commerce bagging for certain dispensing products.
We have our second poll question, and this is not to be intended as a trick question, but heat induction liners required for e-commerce. We'll give a couple more seconds for everyone to vote. Okay, we have 100% voted, and we have a 50-50 split. So 50% say yes and 50 no. So you can speak to that, Michael.
Well, actually, so everybody's right on this one. The answer is yes and no. Well, Michael, what do you mean? Well, let's look at Amazon's definition of a double seal. And liquids being shipped through Amazon require a double seal. What does it mean? Well, a tightened lid that cannot be easily opened, i.e. your cap. And one of the following: a safety seal that you can peel off that is underneath the lid or cap, that i.e. an induction liner, or some kind of manufactured seal around the outside of the container. In the bottom right-hand corner, you can see what we mean. So let's say a shrink wrap. So the answer is yes and no. But here's the real bottom line. Products that do not have this double seal, so they do not have either the induction seal or shrink wrap around a tightly closed closure, they have to be bagged. And thus, in bagging is going to cost you what, 50 cents to $1, let's say, for the cost of the bag. There's labor to put the product in the bag. There may be third-party markup if you're having somebody else place the product in the bag. And there may be other associated costs with managing suppliers and vendors, etc., who are involved in the bagging process. So assuming 10% of your sales are via e-commerce, that 50 cents to $1 is akin to adding 5 to 10 cents to 100% of your products sold, e-com or otherwise, right? In which case an induction seal is pennies. So that is a significant cost savings opportunity by using induction seal on all of your products and thus eliminating that 50 cents to $1 cost. And that same applies to the custom dispensing liner that we mentioned previously. Not only is it a cost savings benefit to have an induction seal on your e-com packaging and thus eliminating the need for bagging, there's a number of other benefits that are associated with it. Consistent packaging and consistent consumer experience. Looking at that image on the left, you can see the same product purchased through 2 different e-com channels. Very different customer experiences, a very different look. One is in a bag, one is in a bag and has a tape on the cap. All of which is relatively unpleasant for the consumer to deal with. And the bag won't mitigate the leaks. If it still leaks in the bag, it can still be, depending on the product, a consumer safety issue. So an induction seal will mitigate, if not eliminate, leaks, increase consumer safety, as a result, increase brand protection, and thus reduces fines and penalties that you may be realizing as a result of a leaking product. So a lot of associated benefits beyond just the cost savings to induction sealing in the e-commerce space. So here's some key questions to consider to prevent leaks when selecting your liner for e-commerce purposes. And this is not intended to be an exhaustive list of questions. And certainly you may have others, and I would encourage you to reach out to Kaufman Container after this call to have them vet or help clarify or provide insight into any other questions that you may have. But let's take a look at these 4 questions. Is your liner compatible with the product? Very important question. Your product may break down or degrade an induction liner that does not have a barrier layer. And sometimes it can be products that you wouldn't even think would need a barrier layer. I'm working with a customer who is selling gels or gummies, and there's something about the gel or gummy that is breaking down the induction liner, and thus they need a barrier layer. What is the product fill level, especially if you're dealing with very aggressive products or chemicals or formulations or oily products? And if you're filling to a high level in the bottle and some of that product is getting on the rim, you may need a more robust seal than you might otherwise think for your induction liner. What's the desired removal method or experience you want customers or consumers to have? Do you want them to be able to easily peel the liner off? Do you want them to be able to grab something like a half moon or a lift and peel type of liner? Do you want them to have to cut the liner off with a knife because of the natures of the chemistries of your product? Or perhaps you want them to be able to push their thumb through the product very easily in order to access the, let's say, tablets or pills, as I think of Zyrtec, which I love being able to push my thumb easily through that seal for those of you who suffer with allergies as I do. How even is the bottle land area of your container? If uneven, you may need a thicker backing to your induction liner or even a secondary foam or pulp liner to make up or compensate for the unevenness of the land area of your container so that you get a good, consistent, leak-proof seal. Vented liners. Vented liners improve e-commerce packaging and product performance. For those of you who are not familiar with vented liners are a induction liner, a foam or pulp liner with a hole poked in it. And then over that hole is sealed a breathable material that allows for the bidirectional transmission of air or gases, but holds back liquids, so it's a leak-proof seal. And thus, while being able to allow for the bidirectional transmission of gases and thus the equalization of pressure inside your container, vented liners can mitigate e-commerce package distortion as well as label damage due to that distortion. Eliminates container bloating and paneling. If you're using active chemistries, that can be increase in their reaction to environment or temperature due to the stresses of e-commerce shipping. Vented liners eliminate that bloating and paneling. They open up custom design opportunities because you're not having to have all the folds and ridges and structural enhancements that you may be placing in your container now to hide or mask the effects of e-commerce shipping or container bloating and paneling. And you can use less resin with vented liners because they're equalizing the pressure inside the container, and thus you can use a softer, more supple container or lightweight your bottle or container and achieve your sustainability goals because of vented liners. Vented liners can also allow you to increase the efficacy and the concentration or compaction of your product. So now you can use more of the active ingredients, perhaps to give your brand or product a competitive advantage, as well as concentrate the product or compact the product by taking water out of it. And thus, as Kevin mentioned earlier, you're shipping less product, perhaps in a smaller bottle, and that reduces shipping costs. Decrease the use of inhibitors. So what are inhibitors? Inhibitors are chemicals that you may be placing in your product that has active ingredients. And inhibitors are those chemicals that inhibit or eliminate the off-gassing or oxygen scavenging effects of your active ingredients. These inhibitors are generally more expensive than the incremental cost of venting your product. And thus, You can eliminate the use of inhibitors with vented liner, and also inhibitors are also dangerous chemicals, and thus it becomes a employee safety product as well. And then of course you get the product and packaging that you really want, right? Because you may want that smooth, soft, supple package that normally you would think won't hold up to the stress of e-commerce due to the pressure changes with vented liner. Yes, you can get even that more aggressive chemistry into the bottle and package that you really want, and that consumers will pay a premium for. Leak prevention. So when we talk about vented liner, we talk about the quality of vented liner, we're really talking about leak prevention, because the one thing you do not want to have in e-commerce is obviously your liquid products leaking. So this is what I call the ABCs of vented liner quality. In A and B, you will see a poor quality vent. In image A, you're looking at what we call ovulation. Ovulation occurs when, as the liner is advancing in the manufacturing process and holes are being punched in it for the vents, the hole punch is still in the liner as the liner advances, because the timing of the machines aren't set up properly. And when the liner advances while the hole punch is still in the liner, it stretches the hole or the punch into an oval shape. And now you're placing a round vent over an oval hole, and that can be a source of leaking. In image B, I'll encourage you to look very closely at images 1, 2, and 3. In image 1, you'll see how close that vent is to the edge of the liner. That is probably the hottest point of the liner during the induction sealing process, and that vent will be damaged by the induction sealing process and thus be a source for leaking. In images 1, 2, and 3, and this is the same set of samples, you can see within this same set of samples, the vent location is moving. That is an indication of poor quality controls, and if the vent hole is moving, if the vent liner is moving, you're adding variation, and that can be a source of leaking. And then you'll also see the raised area if you look very closely on all 3 of those vent seals in images 1, 2, and 3. That raised area is called flagging. Flagging is a result of when the mechanism of the machine that is applying the vent to the liner is hitting the liner too hard or it's too hot. That flagging can also be a source of potential leaking. Now in image C, you're seeing what superior quality looks like. You're seeing very uniform holes, very uniform seals, little to no flagging. The seals are a safe distance from the edge of the liner, and they are in the exact same place and going from liner to liner within the same sample set or run. That's what you really want to look for when you get samples from your suppliers of vented liner. You want to compare these things and look for that flagging, the vent movement, and vent location. Supplier resources. Today, your suppliers and vendors have a broad range of resources that can support your e-commerce product development and packaging. Leverage those resources. In many cases, there is no charge for them. Look for resources like compatibility testing and making sure that the liner you're selecting is appropriate, compatible. E-commerce container testing. What might be the impacts of pressure changes, environmental changes on your container, irrespective of what your container is holding? Look for that type of testing. Drop testing. If you're going to use an induction seal or induction liner, your package is certainly going to be handled roughly throughout the e-commerce supply chain. So thus, will your vented liner seal or your induction seal, will it hold up to a drop test? Air pressure and temperature testing. Have your suppliers and vendors do that type of testing as well to ensure that your package is going to be able to handle the rapid pressure and sometimes temperature changes that will occur during shipping. Validation testing. It's one thing to be able to test a product in a lab and have an application that's being recommended to you work. It's another thing entirely to be able to manufacture that solution at scale and not have leaking in your e-commerce supply chain. And thus, make sure that the solution being recommended to you has been validated or is being actively used in the field today. And then finally, on-staff lab technicians and in-field engineers. Most of your suppliers today will have experts that you can call to brainstorm, troubleshoot, ask for suggestions and recommendations on staff and labs that can test the applications being discussed, as well as in-field engineers who can go out and meet with you at your fillers to troubleshoot and even do testing or resetting of induction seal settings to ensure that you're getting the appropriate seal. We're going to take a look at 3 case studies now that support much of what we've been saying today. Custom dispensing liner case study. Here is a baby product whose objective was a leak-proof seal that improves the customer experience. This is a good example of one that was using an orifice reducer in combination with a CRC cap. And once that CRC cap got oil up in it, it became difficult to really engage and remove the cap. The solution, custom pull tab induction liner. Result, again, frustration-free packaging. Easily removing the CRC cap, no bags or wraps required for e-commerce channels, 0 leaks, and it's an effective e-commerce as well as a retail solution. Then an induction lighter case study. Here's a natural cleaning product, and in this case, the brand wanted to increase the use of their active ingredients and increase the efficacy of the product in order to gain a competitive advantage in their category. But these active ingredients, when exposed to the stress of temperature changes, caused even more issues for the package and the bottle that they really wanted. Solution, a custom circumvent and a custom airfoil application. Circumvent is a vented foam or pulp application, and airfoil is a vented induction liner application. The results, again, frustration-free package. No bags, no wraps required for e-commerce channel, and they were able to gain a 20 to 30% advantage in terms of pricing power over their competitors. And finally, an RFID case study. This is a health products management and distribution company, and this is a great case study. Objective, manage critical product inventories so that they're not running out of product at critical times. Increase consumer safety, making sure that the right product is going to the right consumer and they're not creating safety issues by sending the wrong products to the wrong consumers. Reducing product shortages and staff hours. So they're putting in just a tremendous amount of staff hours into managing their supply chain and managing their inventories. And the solution, a custom RFID tagging application. The results, 100% processing accuracy. That's remarkable. Reduced inventory spend by over 17%. Also remarkable. Restocking hours reduced 75%. So that is just a fantastic case study example of how RFIDs can have a positive effect on your e-commerce supply chain. With that, I will conclude, folks, with just a quick overview of resources that are available to you from Kaufman and Selig. KaufmanContainer.com and their YouTube channel, great resources, fabulous blog. Definitely want to check that out. Selig Group, we have a brand new website with online resources, with a comprehensive solution guide to help you identify the ideal vented liner application for your products, as well as our PHT manual, which is a great manual to best understand how to truly improve your induction sealing settings by getting the right pressure, heat, and time applications for a secure seal. With that, Mary Ellen, we'll open it up to questions.
Correct. Thank you, Michael, so much, and Kevin as well. We did receive, and I thank everyone for your attendance. We did receive several questions prior to the webinar, and we are going to address a couple here since we're coming up a little bit on time. So we'll have Michael take the first one. What are the benefits of product compaction in an e-commerce channel? And I'll let Michael address that one, and he'll pivot over to Kevin for the other.
Thank you, Mary Ellen. Yeah, that's a great question, and Kevin had touched on it previously as well. When you are compacting your product, i.e. concentrating and taking water out of your product, you're reducing the weight, and thus you're reducing shipping costs. But there's also a myriad of other advantages to compaction as well. Your throughput within your plant in terms of filling, you're now filling smaller bottles faster. That increases your throughput and reduces costs. You're reducing, obviously, your shipping costs. You're able to get more bottles because you're using a smaller bottle, more bottles on a pallet, and thus reducing your shipping costs then to retail outlets. And then your retail sales is significantly increased because you're getting more bottles of product in the same retail shelf square footage. So a lot of advantages to compaction, not just in the e-commerce space as it relates to reducing of shipping costs, but also those other advantages both up and downstream of the actual manufacturing process.
Kevin, second question we're going to look at is how can packaging help the e-commerce customer experience?
Yeah, thanks, Mary Ellen. Yeah, I think it's another great question, and hopefully at this point you've learned a lot in today's presentation in different ways packaging can help in this area. You know, certainly the goal should always be to create a frustration-free and reliable package. You know, certainly it will help with brand loyalty and reliability, but also help to reduce costs on your side as well. You know, that should always be the goal. And again, as a consumer, we all want to receive packaging that's intact and in the use that it should be in. Always want to avoid anything that can leak and cause damage. So again, hopefully you've picked up on quite a few good tips and tricks today that can help in that area as well.
Thank you, Kevin. Go ahead and next slide, if you would. What I'll say here is a big thank you to everyone that joined us today. As I mentioned earlier, we will be sending a link to this presentation as well as the other two webinars we partnered with Kaufman Container on, following up with those who submitted questions via email. So rest assured you will hear from us. And this concludes today's webinar, Maximizing E-Commerce Profitability, Strategies to Boost Product Sales and Margins.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.